Cold-Blooded Goblin. A screenplay by writer unknown. EXT Tower Bridge, London, afternoon. Thoughtful mechanic Mr. Richard Williams is arguing with considerate gardener MRS Catherine Cox. Richard tries to hug Catherine but she shakes him off. Richard. Please Catherine, don't leave me. Catherine. I'm sorry Richard, but I'm looking for somebody a bit more brave. Somebody who faces his fears head on, instead of running away. Richard. I am such a person. Catherine frowns. Catherine. I'm sorry, Richard. I just don't feel excited by this relationship anymore. Catherine leaves. Richard sits down, looking defeated. Moments later, grateful mechanic DCI Jessica Bond barges in looking flustered. Richard. Goodness, Jessica. Is everything okay? Jessica. I'm afraid not. Richard. What is it? Don't keep me in suspense. Jessica. It's a goblin. I saw an evil goblin hurt a bunch of baby birds. Richard. Defenseless baby birds? Jessica. Yes, defenseless baby birds. Richard. Bloomin' heck, Jessica. We've got to do something. Jessica. I agree, but I wouldn't know where to start. Richard. You can start by telling me where this happened. Jessica. I was. Jessica fans herself and begins to wheeze. Richard. Focus Jessica, focus. Where did it happen? Jessica. Miami Beach. That's right, Miami Beach. Richard springs up and begins to run. EXT. A road, continuous. Richard rushes along the street, followed by Jessica. They take a shortcut through some back gardens, jumping fences along the way. EXT Miami Beach, shortly after. Warwick Randall, a cold-blooded goblin, terrorizes two baby birds. Richard, closely followed by Jessica, rushes towards Warwick, but suddenly stops in his tracks. Jessica. What is this? What's the matter? Richard. That's not just any old goblin, that's Warwick Randall. Jessica. Who's Warwick Randall? Richard. Who's Warwick Randall? Who's Warwick Randall? Only the most cold-blooded goblin in the universe. Jessica. Blinkin' knickers, Richard. We're going to need some help if we're going to stop the most cold-blooded goblin in the universe. Richard. You can say that again. Jessica. Blinkin' knickers, Richard. We're going to need some help if we're going to stop the most cold-blooded goblin in the universe. Richard. I'm going to need blades, lots of blades. Warwick turns and sees Richard and Jessica. He grins an evil grin. Warwick. Richard Williams, we meet again. Jessica. You've met? Richard. Yes. It was a long, long time ago. EXT. A park, back in time. A young Richard is sitting in a park listening to some trance music, when suddenly a dark shadow casts over him. He looks up and sees Warwick. He takes off his headphones. Warwick. Would you like some fruit gums? Richard's eyes light up, but then he studies Warwick more closely, and looks uneasy. Richard. I don't know, you look kind of cold-blooded. Warwick. Me. No. I'm not cold-blooded. I'm the least cold-blooded goblin in the world. Richard. Wait, you're a goblin? Richard runs away, screaming. EXT Miami Beach, present day. Warwick. You were a coward then, and you are a coward now. Jessica. To Richard, you ran away. Richard. To Jessica, I was a young child. What was I supposed to do? Richard turns to Warwick. Richard. I may have run away from you then, but I won't run away this time. Richard runs away. He turns back and shouts. Richard. I mean, I am running away, but I'll be back, with blades. Warwick. I'm not scared of you. Richard. You should be. Int. King's Cross Station, London, later that day. Richard and Jessica walk around searching for something. Richard. I feel sure I left my blades somewhere around here. Jessica. Are you sure? It does seem like an odd place to keep deadly blades. Richard. You know nothing, Jessica Bond. Jessica. We've been searching for ages. I really don't think they're here. Suddenly, Warwick appears, holding a pair of blades. Warwick. Looking for something? Jessica. Crikey, Richard, he's got your blades. Richard. Tell me something I don't already know. Jessica. The Earth's circumference at the equator is about 40,075 kilometers. Richard. I know that already. Jessica. I bite my toenails. Warwick. Appalled, dude. While Warwick is looking at Jessica with disgust, Richard lunges forward and grabs his deadly blades. He wields them, triumphantly. Richard. Prepare to die, you cold-blooded potato. Warwick. No please. All I did was hurt a bunch of baby birds. Catherine enters, unseen by any of the others. Richard. I cannot tolerate that kind of behavior. Those baby birds were defenseless. Well, now they have a defender, and that's me. Richard Williams, defender of innocent baby birds. Warwick. Don't hurt me. Please. Richard. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't use these blades on you right away. Warwick. Because Richard, I am your father. Richard looks stunned for a few moments, but then collects himself. Richard. No you're not. Warwick. Oh well, it had to be worth a try. Warwick tries to grab the blades but Richard dodges out of the way. Richard. Who's the daddy now? Huh. Unexpectedly, Warwick slumps to the ground. Jessica. Did he just faint? Richard. I think so. Well, that's disappointing. I was rather hoping for a more dramatic conclusion, involving my deadly blades. Richard crouches over Warwick's body. Jessica. Be careful, Richard. It could be a trick. Richard. No, it's not a trick. It appears that. It would seem. Warwick Randall is dead. Richard. What? Richard. Yes, it appears that I scared him to death. Jessica claps her hands. Jessica. So your blades did save the day, after all. Catherine steps forward. Catherine. Is it true? Did you kill the cold-blooded goblin? Richard. Catherine, how long have you been? Catherine puts her arm around Richard. Catherine. Long enough. Richard. Then you saw it for yourself. I killed Warwick Randall. Catherine. Then the baby birds are safe. Richard. It does seem that way. A crowd of vulnerable baby birds enter, looking relieved. Catherine. You are their hero. The baby birds bow to Richard. Richard. There is no need to bow to me. I seek no worship. The knowledge that Warwick Randall will never hurt baby birds ever again, is enough for me. Catherine. You are humble as well as brave. One of the baby birds passes Richard a tinkling pendant. Catherine. I think they want you to have it, as a symbol of their gratitude. Richard. I couldn't possibly. Pause. Richard. Well, if you insist. Richard takes the pendant. Richard. Thank you. The baby birds bow their heads once more, and leave. Richard turns to Catherine. Richard. Does this mean you want me back? Catherine. Oh, Richard, of course I want you back. Richard smiles for a few seconds, but then looks defiant. Richard. Well, you can't have me. Catherine. What? Richard. You had no faith in me. You had to see my scare a goblin to death before you would believe in me. I don't want a lover like that. Catherine. But. Richard. Please leave. I want to spend time with the one person who stayed with me through thick and thin, my best friend, Jessica. Jessica grins. Catherine. But. Jessica. You heard the gentleman. Now be off with you. Skedaddle. Shoo. Catherine. Richard. Richard. I'm sorry Catherine, but I think you should skedaddle. Catherine leaves. Jessica turns to Richard. Jessica. Did you mean that? You know, that I'm your best friend? Richard. Of course you are. The two walk off arm in arm. Suddenly Jessica stops. Jessica. When I said I bite my toenails, you know I was just trying to distract the goblin, don't you? The end.